The studio was on fire, figuratively, of course. Josh Kaplan's monologue had barely ended before the air crackled with outrage. On one side, the Jewish investigative bulldog David Collier, fists clenched in calm fury. On the other, Kadesha Khan, sharp-eyed, unflinching, refusing to yield. The topic? A British Muslim man's brutal attack, and the storm it's unleashed across Britain's airwaves. What began as grief quickly morphed into accusation, ideology, and explosive truths no one wanted to hear. By the end, the studio wasn't just divided, it erupted. But what exactly triggered the blaze that left viewers speechless? Watch the clip.
Did you know over 95% of our viewers aren't subscribed? Subscribing is free and helps us create more great content. Hit subscribe now and join our community.
My opinion that, as you said, that we need to have an honest and frank and open discussion on this issue, that yes, there are certain segments within Muslim communities which are radicalized by this ideology. And I would not say that it's only an Islamist ideology. There are certain Islamic teachings, certain Islamic readings that encourage or embolden these kind of sentiment among people. So why not discuss those things and just rebut and denounce those things publicly in an open discussion so that people don't fall for them? We have to also think about those people who are vulnerable. They are Muslim young boys and girls who are just going to these mosques, taking these lectures, taking these lessons, and they are falling for these propaganda. In my opinion, hate, bigotry, prejudice, wherever it rears its ugly head, we need to call it out. Whether it is coming from religion, we should not be tolerating intolerance.
Absolutely, and it's an interesting point that you make, because all religions contain problematic passages. You know, in the New Testament, in the Torah, there's stuff you can find anywhere which can be used to hate, of course. But as you're saying, Khadija, what we are unfortunately seeing is lack of support for those people who are challenging it, right?
I think part of it as well is what happens when they do. I mean, you're mentioning if I was to go on my Facebook or on Twitter and I was to post something that was controversial, extreme, there would be immediate pushback from within my own community. I do a lot of research into like the extremists, like Muslims in this country, and you go on their Facebook posts, you go into their pages, when they post something, even if it's support for terrorism, support for bloodshed, there's only likes. Only love hearts, not a single angry face, not a single challenge. And that's a really scary situation to be in.
Well, we just saw obviously the attack this week, and then it's revealed that the murderer's father comes out and does his kind of like, this is shock, this is a tragedy, and then of course, well, tell me what you were talking about earlier.
This is part of it. I mean, shortly after the attack, one of the things I do is I go and I start looking for, the family, start seeing what's going on. I found the father's Facebook. And as the father is making a statement to say we're absolutely shocked and horrified, you go into his Facebook stream and you see that there's been support for the atrocities of October the 7th. There's support for rockets and missiles falling on Israeli houses. And it reminded me because it's a pattern. I remember with the murder of the MP, David Amos in Southend, when I did the same thing, you find the father standing there talking about how he's shocked, but you go into the father's Facebook posts and you see this is what's going on in the household. You can see the extremism there. And these people, they're coming in, and we're talking about now, these people mostly were born here, not all of them. But if not, then their parents were born abroad, and they're coming in from places like Libya, the Manchester bomber in Libya, and you realise that they were fighting in Libya. Or this guy from Syria was sectarian. Just because he happened to be against Assad doesn't make him a friend of democracy and we're bringing them in. We're not checking enough. We've got hundreds of thousands of these people coming in every year, and there is almost no due diligence done on it whatsoever. They're being left in these houses. The fathers are extreme, and they're pushing this extremism onto the children. And we're not, the problem, and this is what our society's not pushing back against it. We're not taking those children and saying, actually, you're British, you're here. This is what we believe over here. And we're not doing that, and I think it's an awful mistake.
Yeah, I mean, this cultural point is, I think this goes back to what you were saying, was that, someone was essentially raised in this country, he was very young when he came here. This is a learned culture, right?
We have seen these discussions in mainstream media that these pro-Palestine marches, they are, infiltrated by certain anti-Semitic, elements, and then there has been denial about this thing, and then we see that right after this tragic incident, 2 Jewish people, they were killed in cold blood. And after a few hours, we saw a chaos in the city. I mean, they didn't give them 24-hour period, in my opinion, just to mourn their loved ones in peace. Or it's a tragedy for the whole community. So I have always said that there have been elements here in this society on British soil which are extremist. And of course, people who are coming with these kind of radical views, they are doubling down, this kind of threat to our democracy, to our society, to our culture. But we need to understand this thing, that there is a denial about these anti-Semitic elements in the pro-Palestine marches. We are not willing to accept that there is a problem and we need to address that. And it's in my opinion, it's ridiculous to even suggest that we have been sleepwalking into this nightmare. Literally, it was a suicidal adventure, in my opinion, to let these extremist views take root in British society. And it is a tragedy that a country that has been viewed traditionally as the bastion of free speech, tolerance, and a heaven, a secure heaven for religious minority, this has become a breeding ground for these extremist views. And this all been done in the name of multiculturalism, because the suggestion that has been pushed into political social discourse is that all cultures, they are all equal, they are all respectable, all religious beliefs are respectable. You cannot just criticize any religion, and specifically Islam. The anti-Semitic sentiment have been euphemized, by pro-Palestine activism in the West, in my opinion, because people, they say whatever they want to say and they get away with it because they are activists, because they are speaking for Palestinian people. In Palestine, Palestinian people, they are raising their voice against Hamas, but you will not see any of these pro-Palestine protesters in the West condemning Hamas terrorists. They would be removing every single individual from the protest who is even carrying a placard condemning Hamas.
Well, it's not just the protest, whatever you're seeing on the BBC. You're not going to see I've seen lots of footage of Hamas murdering its own citizens. You're never seeing that kind of stuff out on the BBC. And, the other part of what I was talking about, David, was, how much the incitement that we've seen and the lies that have come through, and many of them that you personally have exposed. To what level do you think that has added to what happened on Thursday?
Well, firstly, I think that the BBC is the biggest spreader of anti-Semitism in the United Kingdom today, bar none, because the legitimacy that the BBC has, it carries the responsibility of telling the truth. So when the BBC is pushing lies or not exposing what's taking place, we're talking about these marches. Almost all of the mainstream media sources have referred
Obviously,
to...
Obviously, the BBC deny that. I just have to say that.
Well, OK,
of course they can, yeah.
Deny as much as they like, for fine. But all of these they've been referring to these marches as peace marches. We have these people, the ones who are marching through the streets, calling for the destruction of the Middle East's only democracy, turning around and...
Also calling for the destruction of globalised... the
globalised intifada, which is...
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Next UK, your go-to for real stories and sharp analysis.